Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, I want to say thank you to my sponsors. We have two sponsors on my anchor page, my good friend Jake and my friend Jonathan. And also we have a new sponsor. David Gastelum is our sponsor. So if you're thinking of buying a home, thinking of selling a property, thinking of buying an investment property in Imperial or in San Diego County, you must contact David Gastelum at 760-235-9576. He's not only a realtor, but he's also an investor with over 20 years of experience. He will not only sell you a property, but he'll teach you along the way on one of your most important investments that you will make. So call David if you're looking for a home or looking to sell your property. All right, so today it's my first. I'm here in El Centro today. I came down to the LGBTQ Resource Center, and I'm here with Brianna. Brianna is one of the volunteers here. Are you I'm
a volunteer and a facilitator.
Mm-hmm. So one night I was browsing Facebook and I saw this post by
Kelly.
Yeah. There was a post about this group. Is it kind of like depression or what?
Well, it's a peer-to-peer mental illness support group. So it doesn't matter what illness you have. A mental illness, because there's quite a few. I wanted to start a support group because there is no support group in the Imperial Valley for mental illness. And also I know that Imperial County Behavioral Health has a wellness center, and I believe that they do have a support group, but it is only for its patients. So if you're not a patient, if you're not comfortable yet, if you're not comfortable with seeking out help from them, you can't partake in the support group. And when I came here by accident. My son was doing community service and he was here volunteering. And one day I just, started talking to Rosa, and she was just telling me about the center and the services that it offers. And I was telling her how cool I thought it was that there's an LGBT resource center in the Valley, because I know that there is a large population now and they have nowhere to turn if, they need support or help or have questions. So I was telling her how cool that I thought that was. And she was like, I wish there was more support in the community for people that live with mental illnesses. And she was like, okay. She goes, well, do you have, and I told her, I was like, I do. I suffer from, I don't like to say suffer anymore. I say that I live with these illnesses because they're chronic illnesses. But I've been diagnosed. I have panic disorder, OCD, and agoraphobia. So when I told her that, she was like, I've been wanting to start a support group for this, but in support groups, they want somebody who has lived experience. They want someone to facilitate that has a mental illness. And since she doesn't, she basically was like, let's do it. And I was like, okay, and so a couple of weeks, and she wanted to get the ball rolling a lot faster, I guess, than I did. And we ended up starting the end of June 2018. And since we've started, we have kind of up and down. So when we first started, there was only a few people, probably like 3. And then it got up to 10. It hovers around 6 to 8 right now. But for me, it helped me a lot. It's helping me a lot to just be around people that also suffer with mental illness and also know what it is to live with it and, able to relate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it helps. Sometimes we can't, we try to help somebody, but if we can't really, we don't know what they're experiencing, like it's kind of hard to we as somebody that's not suffering a mental illness can, get frustrated because we're like, how can you not?
Yeah.
And we can't really understand. So yeah, it makes sense to have somebody that's gone through some type of mental illness to kind of help others to cope with it, like you have. So do you still suffer from, some of your
Yes. Panic disorder is panic attacks, which are pretty, I mean, that's something that's commonly heard along with like generalized anxiety disorder. OCD, well, I have a mild form of it. Thankfully, it's not, severe. The agoraphobia, a lot of people don't hear about it or don't know what it is. Basically, it's a fear of places, social places, stores, the outside. There was a time I got diagnosed when I was 18, and there was a time, probably in my early 20s, that I was homebound. I could not leave my house. And that lasted for 2 years. And it was really, it was a devastating time. It was a really dark time in my life. So I tried therapy back then, and I didn't see that it was helping. So I stopped. And when I finally started to go out again, and it was a very slow, I didn't get my driver's license till I was like 22, so it was a very slow start. But when I started going out, I progressively got better. So it comes kind of in waves. So after that, I just had this time where I was doing so well. It was like, it was gone, it went away. And I was able to go places and do things again and start working and, get my driver's license and, do all these things that I could not do. And then that went on for a very long time. And then in 2010, around there, it was getting bad again. So my therapist has told me that usually you'll see it get worse when you're having stressful times, in your life, or traumatic times. So it started getting worse again. I say that I kind of live like in a bubble, or it's like a prison of my mind, so I have these boundaries. And it sounds really weird to the person that doesn't have a mental illness or, that has no idea, what it is. So basically, like I said, I was homebound at one time. So the area, kind of starts closing in. So in 2010, it was pretty bad. It was where I could drive a block maybe from my house. And I have 6 children, and it takes a toll because my children also had to live with this because, their mother, couldn't go to a lot of things, missed out on a lot of school things, assemblies, and so on. So we had that big earthquake in 2010, and I don't know what it was, but it brought me back out. I don't know if maybe it's because when the earthquake hit, I happened to be at home, and I did not want to be home afterwards because I'm just deathly afraid of earthquakes. So once again, I was back out again and able to drive more and get further. And I was working, things were good. And a couple of years later, it started again. And when it started that time, I was like, I want to seek out help. I need help, with this. Like, it's too much for me to try to handle, like, on my own. So I did seek out, I went to behavioral health because that's pretty much all that's here. Yeah. And I got evaluated, and the psychiatrist was like, well, we can't help you. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, because he was like, we help people here that are more severe. I don't see, you're standing in front of me. I don't see, you being, so severe that you need, medications to function your day-to-day life. And so they sent me on my way. Wow. So that was pretty disappointing. So I just continued on and just tried to do my best, tried to use the coping skills that I had. And that's where I was up until probably, 2016, 2015. And I had my youngest child, and that was rough because my illnesses it was getting really bad again. So going through all that, last year, like I said, it was, by accident. But after I started coming here, after we started the group, after I started volunteering, I saw huge changes in my general, I was happier. I was, I felt I had purpose again. And that wouldn't have happened without this center. And when I came here, I thought that it was, for the LGBT community. I did not know that it was open to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're of that community or if you're not. You're welcome here.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, when I first heard the name, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Like,
yeah.
But
it's geared more for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, at the same time, sometimes it's they're tied together,
Yes.
Because some of the people who are, gay or bisexual, they're hiding this because of society. So like they get depressed, they get all these. There's just as much, if not more, stigma associated with the LGBT community than with mental illness. Yeah.
And most people that are in the LGBT community suffer with a mental illness or some type of mental condition. So she, like I said, Rosa thought that it was, a great thing to try to, bring in, a mental illness support group, not only for, say, me, which I, identify straight, but for anybody else that comes to the center that doesn't feel that they have support, because it's not easy. And there's so many people in the Valley that suffer in silence because it's just not something that's talked about. Like you said, it's very taboo, but when I started here, I really started embracing what I have instead of trying to hide it. Mm-hmm. Before coming here, I would not really talk about it. I wouldn't, disclose it. I felt that it was more of something that's not, you don't want to share it. It's something you want to hide. It's embarrassing. Mm-hmm. It's something that's like you're something that's wrong with something that's wrong with me. Mm-hmm. So coming here, I actually went through, I did training with NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Out of San Diego, I did a training. I became a certified peer and family support specialist. Going through that training and being here and doing the support groups, I felt empowered by it. I felt like, what? Maybe my illness is not so much of a setback or a disability, but maybe something that I can help others with. So it's made, a huge impact in my life. 2018, I went places that I hadn't been in 7 or 8 years. Wow. So and I think it was in large part due to the fact that my mindset was just different and I felt free and not judged. So I can come here and be exactly who I am. And if I do have a panic attack or if I have moments where I'm not, feeling well, it's okay. And they are accepting of that. And they don't, look at me like, with a weird face or like, what's wrong with her? They're just that. So the stigma is not there. And that's what I think what I like the most about it. But I feel that the center is also underutilized. I think that it does so much here. They have so many different, they have groups and they have events and they have smart recovery. They have, drug abuse prevention classes. They have HIV testing. And they also have family and individual counseling at no cost. So, I mean, it's a huge benefit to the community. So I do want to get the word out and let people know. And I think I've taken on the role of more now an advocate for people with mental illness. And I am an ally of the LGBT community. So doing all that, it's just brought me it's made me so much happier, and I don't feel like I have to hide anymore. And I also, when I went through that training, I wanted to do more. So I went ahead and because there's a national suicide hotline, but there's also crisis text line, which is via text. So you can text from your phone and speak with a crisis counselor. I became a certified crisis counselor in October. So I'm also, doing that in my spare time. So it was quite a year. It was quite a 6 or 7 months, but it's been awesome. Rosa actually introduced me to Kelly.
Okay.
Kelly is my co-facilitator. And without him, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because this was my first support group that I ever had attended. So he was a lifesaver because he had already facilitated.
So before the groups that are going on here, there was no groups in the valley. Like there was no
for mental illness. No. Like I said, I know of one, which is located at the Wellness Center, which is through Imperial County Behavioral Health. But if you're not a patient, you cannot access it. And there's a lot of people that I know personally that do not want to go there. Maybe because they're just not ready. Maybe they don't want to. A lot of people see that place. It has just as much stigma as, say, here. They don't want to walk in those doors. They feel like, what's going to happen to me? People are going to think I'm crazy. And I understand it, but since it is really the only access we have here, I think that it is important to get, if you do need the help, get the help. Or if not, come to places like this where you can at least be supported and be validated. People, can relate to what you're going through. And also, since there is individual counseling available here, you also have that. So there's something, if you're not ready to make that move, if you're not ready to go to behavioral health. And because, it is, they put a label on you. So when they diagnose you, that's kind of how some people feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Because even with kids, you can tell that they, and at school, like it's in their system, like in the system, like, oh.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's, it's bad because, it kind of like makes them not want to seek the help that, they need. And
yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I'm actually trying, I'm going to go to Central and try to speak with Mr. Lyon, the principal, because I have 6 children. My 3 oldest have already graduated high school and they went to Central. Most of my family went to Central. I have 2 boys right now attending. And I asked them, because in the last couple of years, unfortunately, there's been suicides, and these kids are, 15, 16 years old. One, I knew her mother personally. So I think that the lack of support for our kids, for especially teenagers, is really, it's just non-existent. Yeah. It's not there. And I asked my son, I was like, hey, do they have, any support groups or clubs, for maybe mental illness or anything other than like the regular counselors? And he was like, no, there's not. And so I'm trying to find out why, we aren't talking to the kids more about mental illness, to normalize it, to make it okay. You don't have to hide it. You don't have, especially because suicide rate, it's the 3rd highest cause of death, in teenagers. And that's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. And as a teenager, you're going through a lot of changes. Yeah. When I was a kid, there was bullying, but now it's like cyberbullying is like even, I feel it's even worse, that there's way more things that, our technology is kind of like amplifying the way, you can get bullied or, the way you can get attacked by, bullies or whatnot. But, it's kind of getting worse, and we're not kind of addressing it as a community.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't see that there is any resources. I know that Southwest they have, I believe it's called HOSA. They do a whole, I think, week of different events, or it's a day. So they, I think, have a little more outreach within their school. But from what I've seen, Central does not. So me and Rosa do plan on going to the school site meeting and to go to the board meetings to try to, bring awareness and find out why they can't do this, why they can't provide more resources. Most of these kids spend most of their time in school.
Yeah.
My two boys, one's in sports, one's in band. I mean, they're constantly at school. It seems like they're at school more than they're at home.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not have access if somebody, feels they need help, so they don't have to feel like they have to hide? Being on crisis text line, you get a lot more younger people than older people, because because it's text and it's just, kids they're just always texting.
Yeah.
Makes it easier. And there's just so many that I have talked to, and it could be, just stressed out at school. But I just want to try to find a way so these kids feel that they do have support and that somebody can relate to what they are dealing with, and they don't have to hide it. Because I grew up in a time where you didn't talk about it. My family didn't talk about it. I just wasn't seen, and I think now celebrities, there's so much more, people
I was going to bring that up.
Coming out and talking about it.
What's that, the one song, is it
from Logic?
Yeah. So he's kind of really,
He did. He put it at the forefront. He really did. So that was a big deal, and it lets kids know that they're not alone in what they feel. And even adults also. A lot of times people don't want to seek out the help because it's not easy and it's embarrassing, and they don't want to be judged. And just the end of last year, we had a psychiatrist that committed suicide.
Yeah.
And I did not see Dr. Camacho personally, but I have members in my support group that did. And they just could not fathom that a doctor, a psychiatrist, did this.
Yeah.
And some were even angry almost. And then I was like, just because they have these professional titles, you have no idea what they're battling behind the scenes. And it was sad that, we had to lose that person, probably because he felt, how can I come forward with what I'm dealing with when I'm taking care of all these patients that see me as this normal, professional, they're put kind of on a pedestal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, well,
Yeah. It was shocking. And then especially here in the Valley, because you just don't hear about stuff like that very often. And I think that's the problem. And that's, why things like that happen, is because nobody wants to talk about it. I have lost friends. I have lost most of my family because of their lack of understanding of what I have. They're just kind of snap out of it. Well, what's the problem? Why can't you go here? And like you said, it is hard for somebody that does not suffer from it, doesn't live with it, doesn't have a loved one that has dealt with it. It is hard to understand. It's hard to wrap your, head around somebody saying, I can't go to Vaughn's. I can't go in there. They look at you like you're crazy. And you get that, you feel like that's like that's stamped across your forehead, if you will.
Yeah, I have two nephews with autism, and you know, I'm like a little bit like I get frustrated easily, and you know, my wife knows that, and she kind of like we've been trying to watch the Atypical show. Have you seen it on Netflix?
No.
It's about this kid that has autism, and he's like in high school. So we're trying to like on ourselves do a little bit of research on you know, autism, kind of like so that we know like what triggers, like if my nephew's like not wanting to like the other day they were baking and he just stepped away and somebody told us like, yeah, you know, there's sometimes that this could be in the wrong place and that triggers them, and you know, they'll just like want to block everybody out, and it's okay. Like you just gotta know when to. Yeah. So like little by little, we're trying to like learn about this, because I mean, in reality, it's something that there's not much known about. You know, autism. Like,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm happy that now, like especially here in the Valley, now there is a lot of resources now for kids with autism, for their parents. So I think that's great, because it was so needed. Because like probably say 5-6 years ago, there wasn't as much as there is now. And even just kids with disabilities, you know, so I think that's, you know, like a big deal. But it is true. Autism does kind of, I feel that some of the things where if you do have somebody who is autistic, it is like that. Something could be out of place and they, you know, they just get, it's like, you can't understand why they're so upset, but they know. And if you just take the time to understand it, then at least you probably can't relate. Yeah. But you can validate it and you can say it's okay. Like, you know, if you need to step away or if you need to go out and get some air or whatever it is. But at least you're not, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? You know, because that is what's the worst, is when they're just like, you know, what's your problem? Like, why are you like this? And then that just, you just go into your shell, because I mean, it's not easy. I've had, you know, panic attacks in public, and you know, it feels like the most humiliating thing in the world, and you feel like everybody is watching you and seeing you. And it happened, you know, recently. I mean, I've been trying to volunteer with the hospital, because I think that, well, both hospitals here have a serious lack of, you know, mental health support. I don't feel like when you go in the hospital, it's not like we have, you know, a special part in the hospital devoted to, say, you know, psychiatric needs. We don't have that here. Yeah. So I really wanted to volunteer. Well, it's a pretty rigorous, you know, thing you have to go through to do it. So I went through the motions, applied, got an interview, and in the interview I had a panic attack.
Wow.
And the thing is when you have panic disorder, you feel them coming. So you know they're coming. And I was in the middle of this interview and it was going very well, which is, you know, awesome, right? And I was just like, I couldn't understand why I was feeling, you know, that way. But probably the last 15 minutes of that interview, I was having a panic attack and trying to maintain, because I wanted to. My first instinct for me is to bolt, is to leave. I need to go outside. I need to get some air. I have to get out of the space I'm in. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to do that. So I ended up, I don't know how, but getting through it. And when the lady, which was the nicest lady, went to walk me out into the lobby of the hospital, I was literally just leaving her behind. I felt horrible and I couldn't tell her. So I said, thank you. And I left. Well, I ended up getting chosen for the program. And I told my therapist, I was like, I know she knew. The lobby was packed with people. I know they all saw me. They were all because I mean, I get to the point where I hyperventilate or I am very, very shaky. So I was already at that point. So I was already at a 10. And when I left there, I was just, it's like I said, it's that feeling of just, you are not normal and you'll never be able to function in, say, the hospital as anything but a patient, if anything, but not as a volunteer or as a worker. And it was hard. And I spent October and November, I was pretty down and pretty upset. And I continued to come here. I continued to do the group. But dealing with things like this and having illnesses like this, they are invisible. So when I meet somebody, they think that I'm just perfectly normal. Yeah. And then I have a panic attack and they're just looking at me like, oh my God, like what's going on? So it's very hard. And when I ended up getting chosen for the program, I did disclose. I did tell her, that I disclosed it in the interview, but not very specifically. I just said that I do suffer from mental illness. And that was one of my wants to volunteer in the hospital, just to try to, help people, because that's what I want to do. So I think that without the support group, I would have still been kind of in my, in my dark place. And it would have been a lot longer that I sat and, went over and over in my mind, why does it happen? But the fact of the matter is that it's an illness. It's not something you want. It's an illness, just like a diabetic or somebody with autism, which is a lot more, I think, people are more willing, like say if you have a child that has autism, it's like, oh, okay, they totally get it and they're with you on it. And they, when you tell them you have schizophrenia or depression or agoraphobia, they just kind of or they don't want to, or they kind of downplay what you have. So that's why I think it's
do you think
so
that
important.
OCD has been more like accepted because, on TV shows, it kind of like.
Yeah, it is definitely more mainstream. So you do see like people, the jokes about people with OCD or that movie with Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets.
Oh, okay.
It's an old movie, but he has severe OCD, but it's more normalized, I think, because you see it on movies and.
Do you think it's portrayed more as a funny thing? Like,
I want to say that they're doing it to put it out there, to normalize it. But I think nowadays, especially, a lot of people take kind of, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack. And they're really not. They kind of, I think they're making it more like you're just having a really, say, bad day and you're just severely depressed. And it's like, okay, you're taking illnesses and kind of just, throwing them out there like they're not really an illness.
Yeah. More
like you just had a really bad day. So, yeah, in media, I think it still, some of it I think is meant to put it out there, to normalize it and let people know that it's okay. But then, other times I think probably it's more poking fun or that you're odd in some way. You're not in the normal crowd. You're weird. Yeah, like in between normal and Yeah, so I for years I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted this to go away, but the sad thing is that it never does. Once you have a mental illness, you're pretty much going to deal with that mental illness for the rest of your life. The only thing you can do is, go to therapy, have good support systems, learn about it, read about it, research it. If medication is needed, then it's needed. I think that that's also really stigmatized, people that, have to take medication for their illnesses. They like to make fun of them, did you get off your meds? Is that why you're having a bad day? Stuff like that. So if you need medication, that's what you need. Whatever it is that helps you have a better quality of life, then that's all that should matter. And for me, I don't take medication. But I do go to therapy. I do see a psychiatrist, and I come here to the center, go to support group. I do all these things to just try to have a, better life and improve my day to day, because at the end, that's all that matters, and it's totally fine. And I just want more people to try to understand it. If you don't have it, that's great, but just try to understand it so you can be more empathetic to people that do have it.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel that, if we don't know, for instance, if I met you, like you said, I wouldn't know that you have, but how does, how would I, is it bad? Is it, rude to ask, or how?
Well, most people don't ask me that I meet.
Because
they assume that it's not like when you see somebody that say, I have a cousin who is a type 1 diabetic, so he has a pump, right? And you see it, so it's something visual.
Yeah.
You know that they have something, or people that say are going through chemo that have cancer. You see the effects, so you can actually see it. I think it's easier to ask, but a person that, say, we just met, you're not going to go and say, oh, do you have any mental illnesses? That's not, but usually, well, now, I do kind of, if it comes up, I'll talk about it. If it doesn't, well, then I don't. I don't want to go and just tell everybody, that I have mental illnesses, but I feel more empowered now to bring it to the forefront and have it out there. So, on my Facebook, it's there in my bio. On my Instagram, it's there. I talk about it. I've talked about it when I've had panic attacks. I think that now we're in that age, like you said, that everything is being documented, everything. But I think in a way it's a good thing. Mm. The more we see people in their vulnerable states, so if they had a bad day or if they just had a panic attack, if they're crying, because we've seen it, Lady Gaga has done that. There's been other celebrities that have, put themselves out there. I think they're helping to normalize it. So say somebody like me, I'm a nobody. I'm an unknown. I can put it out there on social media, and even if 5 people look at it, it could be a person that is going through the same thing and that is suffering. And at least they see it and they say, you know what, at least I'm not alone. Yeah. And I think that's why I've started to do it. Because before I would be like, I can't post a video of myself. I don't have makeup on. Or, it was like, I think people, they joke and they say, they're doing it for the gram. And they're, they look perfect and these perfect little worlds. Yeah. And I think that social media is a gift and a curse. I think it's a great thing for people like you that are trying to bring, awareness to certain causes or the community. But then you have some celebrities or some people that it's all very glamorized. It's like you have to look a certain way. You shouldn't be, you know, wearing this or that because you're not skinny enough, or, you know. So I think that we're becoming, I think, more accepting, but also there is still the, you know, you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Because it can get a little bit out of control, I think, at times.
So you mentioned that you have like on your Instagram and Facebook, you know, you mentioned it. So like say, you know, I'm your friend on Instagram and I see that, you know, I don't know exactly, like say you put you have a Agoraphoria as the so say you put that on your Instagram, and when I see you like, are you okay with like me saying like, I saw that you have this, like, you know, can you explain it, like me as your friend, are you okay with people like kind of like?
Oh no, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, ever since I started, I made my Instagram public. And ever since I started trying to get more out there and get, you know, just the word out, I have had a couple of people message me and tell me that they think it's awesome what I'm doing. I haven't seen anything negative yet, but it feels good to know that in some small part, you're reaching somebody and letting them know that it's okay. You know, you're not alone, and it's okay to not be okay. Because all of us deal with things. But like I said, I think that in the world of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, I think that a lot of people are still, they see these, it's almost like a scripted life, and they want that life.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that life, you feel bad about yourself. So I think that it's important to just be more accepting, like, of yourself and of others. And I mean, like me, I know, you know, I'm not like a supermodel size. I'm not tall and slender, but it's okay. You know, if you're in the LGBT community, you shouldn't have to hide it. And there is a lot of people here in the Valley that do hide, you know, and they don't feel comfortable or safe. So for me, I think now, I never saw myself in that role. I never saw myself as someone that can help others through my illness or through what I've been through. But now I do. And now I want to just help others and reach more people and let them know that it's okay. Let them know that, you know, if they do need somebody, that I am there, you know, even if you're a total stranger. So I've just tried this past year to really, really like put it out there, really talk about it, and, you know, put tips and coping skills and anything that I come across on other sites and other pages that I follow on Instagram. I try to, you know, just pass the word along. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing now, you know, kind of like what you're doing. You know, you're bringing awareness to different things going on in the communities in the Valley. And I mean, because honestly, there's not a lot of resources here. There's not a lot of, I think, acceptance. I think some cities are doing a better job than others. I think like Calexico, El Centro, you do see it more. Like when they do Pride, I've seen that a lot of people come out. And I think it's awesome, you know, and sometimes I tell Rosa, you know, are you worried of what people will say? Like when they come out in the parades or things like that. And she says, no, you know, she says, you know, you have to take the good with the bad. But that the important thing is just to keep pushing forward. And I think that this center is progressive, and it's going to help, I think, in the long run with people that aren't ready to face doctors' offices. And, you know, because they're not comfortable places. They're not places that you walk in and feel at ease.
Yeah.
And I think coming here, the vibe is very, very accepting, very open, and just non-judgmental. So when you walk in here, I think you do feel like, it's not stiff or scary.
Yeah.
It's more of like, warm and welcoming. So just to be a part of it, I think, it's an awesome thing. She gave a platform to somebody that was a nobody. I was not important. I'm not in the community. I'm not, this very well-known person. And she said, let's do this, and gave me a platform to talk about it. And I just, the opportunity, it's been an amazing, opportunity. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
So tell us a little bit more about the center. I know you have, your group.
Yeah.
And then
we have mental illness support group for adults. We also have one for kids that they just started back up. We have trans support, and we also have smart recovery, and we have drug and alcohol education every Friday. We also have like a volunteer support group for the volunteers that come here. And I know she's trying to do more support groups this year, coming into this year. And then they also have the Cadet Youth Academy that they started. Last year was its first year. And it did really well. And they started a color guard, which I don't know if you've seen them. They've been in some parades this year. They'll be at Mardi Gras in February, along with the LGBT Center. But they also have the one-on-one counseling. They have family counseling. Free HIV testing is available here. So, I mean, there's just a ton of different things that the center does. And I think that people may not know, or maybe they feel awkward if they don't identify LGBTQ, but it is open to the public. It's open to anyone and everyone that needs help. They even, Rosa she helps women going through, domestic violence. So, I mean, she really does a lot. The center does a lot. So, I mean, anybody that wants to just come in and, check it out or, meet the people that are here. When I came here, I was welcomed with open arms the first time I walked in here with me and my son. Mm-hmm. And I did not expect that. Because a lot of places in the Valley, I feel like the Valley just isn't as nice as it used to be. I was born and raised here. So it's like, I feel like it's, sometimes people just aren't very friendly or, welcoming. And you kind of feel like, I don't want to go there.
You think it's just like defensive, or is it just like...
I don't know. When I was a kid, people would see you on the streets and say hello to you. You don't really see that as much anymore. Maybe it's just society, where we're at right now and, what's happening in the world right now.
Yeah.
But I think that having places like this, it just helps people that maybe are dealing with loneliness or being, not supported at home, not supported by their parents or their family. And they can come here, and for whatever time they're in here, they do feel the support, and they do feel the, the non-judgmental atmosphere. And that's just such a big thing, especially for people with a mental illness or a person that is LGBT and not ready to come out, not ready to tell their family, but they can come here and be okay. It's a safe space. So I think that that's, invaluable.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, not everybody's gonna understand. The LGBT community. You know, it's something that it's coming out more and more now because I think the world's changing as it is. So like it's something that it's coming in as a part of a culture, but some people that whether it's because of religion, whether it's because of they might not understand, and it's okay. I mean, as long as they're respectful, if it's a religious thing, like we respect. If you're so like, I just feel like just be respectful. I guess what I'm trying to.
Yeah, I think just be more understanding, more respectful, civil. Just. It's okay for everybody to have their different opinions, but let's try, to respect each other and respect each other's opinions. I think we need to be nicer human beings. I think that's right now the way things are. And I'm pretty sure most people will say, we're kind of in these, times where people are very angry. People are, you're seeing people, racism and intolerance, it seems like are coming back. It seems like we're going kind of back in time a bit. So I'm glad that especially most of the younger generations are very much accepting and, it's okay. And I think, especially here in the Valley, it's very, very religious, here. There's a lot of churches, that's a big part of the community. And I think that most are very they're very respectful. Some, maybe not. But I haven't seen too much negative, but I think especially with kids, it is a bit different. I know that the schools may feel like we don't need to talk about LGBT, in the schools. Why do we need to talk about that? Well, you should, because there's a lot more kids now that identify in that community, and they shouldn't have to feel that they're not supported or that they're being in ways discriminated against in their schools. They should be just as accepted as you would have a club for, Latin dance or, these different clubs that these schools have clubs, for the LGBTQ kids, for kids that deal with mental illness, for kids that are autistic. I just think that there is a bit of closed-mindedness still here in the Valley.
Yeah. And I think that I talked to Cami Stutterver. She's our psychologist in Calexico at the school. And they have the Circle of Friends. I don't know if you heard of Circle of Friends.
No, I have not.
It's this group that at least, I think it's once a week, they have lunch with, a kid with a disability, whether it's somebody in a wheelchair or somebody with severe mental, like
disabilities.
Yeah. So I think it's once a week that they do this. They have lunch with they have a buddy they have a lunch and they play a game or something. So they're kind of like slowly bringing. They had a week called I forgot the name of the week. Well, kind of like in embracing people's different disabilities or whatnot. So I think that slowly, schools are kind of like embracing, the changes that, or the different, types of people that are out there, because, we're all different and,
Yeah. And I think that that's crucial, especially for the kids, because like you said, I mean, when we were younger, bullying was done face to face or, on the phone. Well, now it's everywhere. So it's in your face and on the phone and on your computer. And so I think that there is kids that, may not have a lot of friends, or may struggle with a disability or an illness. And so for kids to do that, I think that it shows that kids are, the younger generations are trying to be more accepting. And I think that that's amazing. And I know Central did do a couple of days. I think they actually do have a club, like that kind of promotes, positivity, positive, vibes. But I think that focusing in on mental illness and the LGBT community, I think those are still a little bit, under, just kind of, they're not talked about as much as like anti-bullying or, things like that. Or like eating lunch with somebody, say, that you don't know, just so they're not eating alone that day. I think that it's a great thing because it promotes, the positive vibe, and that it's okay, and to meet people that you normally wouldn't maybe talk to.
Yeah.
So I think that that's great. But I just think, like, especially like, say, like Central, for instance, I think they're more, what you see more is they talk about athletics and, the cool stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's at every school.
That's true. So I think it would be great if they just took a little more time to pay attention to things that aren't talked about as much, and to kids that may just feel invisible at school.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get through their day, and they don't feel, very celebrated or very normal, or that they're in the cool, they're in they're in football or basketball or the band or cheerleading, all these things that have been kind of reserved for the popular kids, the cool kids. So, I think that it's important not to just talk about it during, say, Mental Health Awareness Month or when they do Pride Month. I think that it should be something they talk about all year long. I think that they should have support groups in the schools for kids that have autism or with mental illness, or with LGBT. Because I think that having the support in the school would help them just have a better quality of life. And at least while they're at school, say they don't have a lot of friends, or, during that little bit of time that, say, they go to support group or, get together, at least for that little bit of time they do.
Yeah, because high school is a, really important time in your life. And then it's such a short time, and it's not because when you go to college, it's more accepting because there's more. Yeah, they're more open about.
It's more diverse.
A lot of things. So, but when you're in high school, it's like, there's more like cliques and separation of kids and not blending in. So I think it's important that we do kind of like put it up in the forefront where we need to bring awareness to everybody, like everybody counts,
I think kids, teenagers, high school, and just also adults, like, especially in this community, there is a lack of support. And I think there's a lack of resources. This is the only LGBT center in the Valley. So if you say you lived in Calapat, it's going to be kind of hard, you know, that you don't have that access, like say in your city. And I think that it's important. And even though they do reach out, you know, to the North End and to places where, you know, people may not be able to come to El Centro so easily. But I think that, for me, having mental illness, it's easier to talk to others that have it. You do feel, because it's relatable. You're relatable. And I think it makes it easier to accept it yourself. So you can start loving yourself a little more. Because it's hard, you know, to live with it. Yeah.
So we're at over an hour now. I told you it goes by really fast. So anything else that you would, you know, want to add? You know, maybe give us the location where they can find you on Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. The LGBT Center is here in El Centro. The address is 1073 Ross. We're located in Suite E now since we moved. We are right next to Buckland Park, so it's pretty easy to find us. Yeah. We're open 10 to 7, Monday through Friday. And like I said, all the support groups are open and free to the public. And also, if there's any questions, they can reach on Facebook, on Instagram, call. And there's a lot of volunteers that can answer questions. Also, Rosa, which is the CEO and the founder, is here every day. So, even if it's just to come in and look around, check it out, you know, and just say, hey, you know, the mental illness support group is every Wednesday. We meet every week at 6:00. And if anybody needs to ask a question or just needs, you know, any information, they can also contact me through social media or via email. I can give you my email so you can maybe post it. And just so more people can come and take a look at what is offered here. Mm-hmm. And the environment, because it's a good environment. It's fun and it's a happy environment. Yeah. And I think all of us could use a little bit more happiness in our lives these days.
I had one question that I've been meaning to ask, but it's like we go into, you know, another topic. How is this funded? How are you guys funded?
This is a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. So she relies on grants and donations from the community. She always accepts donations, private or, you know, public donations. Some are anonymous. But any help is good, because I think at times it can be underfunded, but I know that she's been getting some great grants and she's applying for more right now that it's the beginning of the year. So, she wants to expand. Rosa is, you know, she really, you know, she wants to expand and do more. But if the funding's there, it makes it a lot easier for her to do that and to reach more people. Mm-hmm. So.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for, you know, spending this time with me. I want to invite everybody to, you know, come by, like you said, like come by if you want to just like look around, meet the people. Like you said, it's not only for LGBTQ, you know, community, it's open to everybody. Mm-hmm. There's one-to-one counseling. So, come check it out. Meet the people. I want to go meet Rosa because I've heard so much about her. I want to go meet her. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. You're welcome.
Thank you
for sharing your story. Because I know it's, like you said, it's not easy, but it's, you know, I can tell like it's getting easier for you to kind of like.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm glad.
It doesn't make me as sad.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're there and it's getting a little bit better. And well, thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.